In 1974, the first tabletop role-playing game was created. Since then, people from all around have gathered to play. Join me as we talk with RPG enthusiasts while they share their best, worst, and favorite moments. This is You Had to Be There. Hey everyone, welcome to You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast. I am your host, Tom DeSillis. If you're not familiar, I'm also a stand-up comedian. You can check me out at Tom DeSillis Comedy, pretty much on every platform possible. Before we get started, I'm going to be doing just a few giving credit where credit is due. So the awesome logo at the end of my intro was created by Nicole Summers. She is part of a D&D campaign podcast called Reliably Chaotic. It's a really fun original story, great characters, highly recommend it. And then the music for my intro was created by Michael James McGarry. You can find him at It's MJ Made on Instagram and I believe SoundCloud as well. He's a great music writer and producer, so I highly recommend you check this out. And that leads us to my first guest of this adventure that I've put myself on. I want you all, I'm going to introduce my guest. His name is Peter Zepf.
What's up? I have nothing to plug.
That's fine. That makes it easier, and you're nothing to plug but yourself. I do all the shameless plugging. So yeah, this is it. This is the show. We're gonna talk with a bunch of RPG enthusiasts and hear about their awesome and fun and maybe not so fun stories. But first, I have a couple questions first. I have a couple things that I want to know as someone who's been recently kind of obsessed with this topic. When was your first delve into doing playing these games? Where did it all start was it a young Peter Zepf? Was it a few years back?
It all started in 2010 or 2011.
All right.
I don't know when exactly the bug bit me, right? But me and a couple of friends in high school, we found out about D&D. We'd been hearing about it in media, all the Satan worshippers play D&D type stuff from back in the day.
I'm really curious about that kind of stuff.
We didn't know anything about it going in. So diving right in, we went into D&D 3.5.
Okay.
And that system is a big sprawling mess.
I've heard.
I volunteered to be the DM, which was a lot to learn. I think I read the D&D 3.5 Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual cover to cover over the span of a month, and created a homebrew setting because
oh my God. So you started out right away just going in as a DM, because that was going to be my question.
Oh, yeah.
When did you start DMing? And that already answered it. You just went right in. That's bonkers.
Straight
I couldn't
away.
even imagine.
I drew the short straw or something. No, It was a lot of fun though. I have a thing for learning rule systems. It's just kind of a thing that I like to do. I'm always the one to bring new board games to the group. But yeah, 3.5 was a lot. There are a lot of very niche rules. It's a lot more involved and with a lot more subsystems than what 5th edition does. But
right. So you started off with D&D. What was your so this is so crazy. So one of my interests is, all right, so you're playing 3.5, unless you had anything else to share on that topic.
No.
All right. So you're playing 3.5. You're DMing for the first time. When did you get to play as a character? Was it 3.5? Did you move on to something else at that point?
Yeah, there were 2 other 3.5 edition campaigns that I played before. Oh no, it was one 3.5 and one Pathfinder first edition campaign.
That is the big,
before
from what I heard,
high school.
is the Mathfinder of from what I've heard, is the big
You know,
play on that.
I've heard that too, but you know, a lot of the math it's no worse than 3.5 edition. Like all the calculations are very very similar.
Mhm.
You played 3.5, it's just kind of how D&D worked back then.
Right. Just these big numbers.
Yeah, yeah. They're like if you max out a skill by level like 10 in Pathfinder or D&D 3.5, you could be adding like 20 to your rolls.
Right.
It like very much stops being about the D20 roll, and it just starts being about like my character can do this just basically every
Yeah,
time.
because you could, even if you roll, I guess, unless, would a natural one still just auto fail? Well, I guess that doesn't matter.
Yeah, you have the critical and the crit fail.
So
but
unless you roll a 1, you're pretty much like, this is happening. That's got to be a lot of fun for like monks and stuff, like very mobile and acrobatic like characters. You'd be like, I'm gonna do 3 backflips, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Nice. So your first character was in Pathfinder then?
No, my first character was in 3.5.
Okay, it wasn't 3.5.
So, it's, you know, I kind of forget the character's name, which is funny because everyone just called him Thrower.
Do tell.
It was when by the time I got to be a player, I was like, all right, I'm going to dive into every 3.5 book there is. I'm going to pour through everything. I'm going to find a wacky build and make it really strong, right?
Okay.
So in 3.5, there are like 45 expansion books to the system. It's it's really dumb. They kind of went crazy printing that stuff, and there was I decided that I was going to make a throwing weapons character, but not just any throwing weapon. I was going to throw the biggest weapon I could over and over again. I got like a returning enchantment on this giant minotaur great hammer. It was like bigger than I was. I invested like tons of feats into being able to wield things that were 2 size categories larger than I was supposed to. It did like 5d12 damage on a hit. It was
and is that like, at what level were you kind of dealing that amount? Was it this over time, or was it pretty much like right out the gate it was pretty
we
broken?
started at a pretty high level.
Oh, okay.
The DM that I was playing with is a big fan of these kinds of things where it's like you give the players a lot of agency over the things that they can do, and you know, because it's very rare for a campaign to last long enough to get to these higher levels. So like he likes to start things out a little higher than normal so that we can like get a taste of what the powers that these classes
down
can
and
get to
dirty down and dirty stuff.
Yeah. So I was Thrower, right?
Thrower. Okay.
And one of the stories that I like to tell about Thrower is that at character creation, I bought a mule because I wanted to have these great clubs to carry around with me, but I didn't want to be encumbered. So I bought a mule and gave him a bunch of saddle packs and filled them with gigantic great clubs, right? And the mule's name was Milton. I don't remember Thrower's name. I remember the mule's name was Milton.
Nice. All right. It's one of my favorite names for characters.
So one of the first sessions, I think it was the first session, we are in a desert and we go up to this temple thing to go down because some undead are crawling about around the place. So we go, and the mule, I'm like, okay, you stay out here. We're going to go down here. I'm going to tie you up outside. We're going to go down and we're going to explore this cave. I'm going to come back for you. I love you, buddy. I like built a backstory around having this character.
Yeah, don't fall in love with the animals in D&D that you acquire. Dangerous.
So we entered the dungeon and I immediately forgot about the mule.
Yeah.
It entirely left my brain. Forgot that I had a mule altogether. 2 sessions later, we come out of the dungeon and some monstrously high level dragon swoops across the desert and like turns a huge swath of the desert into glass. I'm like, holy shit, oh my god, this big set piece thing just happened. And
oh my god,
somebody across the table from me reminds me, it's like, hey Peter, didn't you have a mule tied up outside the Milton? No,
you have a glass menagerie mule.
Yeah, Milton did not make it.
Oh, R.I.P. Milton. That's hilarious. That's like one of my fears is that I'm gonna like make an animal and forget about it makes me nervous. So you said you bought the mule. So when you start at this higher level, how did your DM like acquire, like did he say like here's this much gold, you go buy what you want, or was this like you bought the mule at a later time?
So in previous editions, a lot of the power level of your character is tied to having crazy magic items.
Right.
They get wild. Like there were as like every new book that came out for 3.5 had like a dozen new crazy stupid overpowered magic items that came with it, right? So there was a wealth by level chart in the DM guide
Okay.
in D&D 3.5, and
Oh,
if you
so
were
like
making a
starting.
character, you would
Go
start
ahead.
with a certain amount of money, and then you can shop through all the books and get what you want.
Very cool. Very cool. So you're throwing stuff. So what class exactly were you again? If I missed that, you just said you were
Um,
throwing. It was a fighter. Was it a fighter?
uh, yes, I was a fighter for a few levels. I was a I I forget the name of the class. It was let me see. Battle. There there was God, yeah, okay. So I was a Warblade. There were okay, so there were classes in 3.5.
Yeah.
There were expansion classes in all of the expansion books that were base classes. There were
Mm-hmm.
prestige classes. There were classes that were locked behind certain feat requirements. There was a lot. This build had like 5 different like combinations of base classes and prestige classes in it.
Mm-hmm.
Designed like, okay, I'm gonna go into this thing for 2 levels to get this bonus to throwing a weapon, and I'm gonna get this other thing for 2 levels to
Mm-hmm.
get access to this feat so that I can have it returned to me every time I throw it. And
Right.
it,
Okay. So you built up to that essentially. That's cool though.
uh,
If for your kind of fun information, you could potentially recreate. I know in I think it's the new Tasha's book, they implemented a throwing fighter proficient in throwing weapons. Um, Also, it could kind of cross between. They also did a new wild magic barbarian where when you rage, you roll a wild magic table, and one of the abilities is you can throw your heavy weapon, and it just appears back in your hand. So
uh,
the opportunities are there that there could be a thrower too if you're ever feeling super froggy about it. Um, so here's my question about thrower. Uh, did he make it? How?
oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no.
This is what I want.
So you know how it sounds nuts, right? That I could just throw this giant warhammer doing all this damage 4 times a turn, and like just pump it out like that, right? Well, um, in 3.5, spellcasters are more OP than anything you can ever do with a melee character, especially later in levels.
Okay.
A lot of people like to make this comparison where martial characters is scale linearly
Right.
and spellcasters scale quadratically.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. Even just in my
um,
playing, I'm like, oh, this really kind of like I only get those slight boosts when like these cantrips start throwing 4 or 5 dice more each time. Like I could see that it still kind of translates today a little bit, but go ahead.
so I was focusing everything in my power to make this guy really good at throwing a giant hammer,
Mm-hmm.
right? I invested nothing into defenses
Got
at
it.
all. So we came across an enemy spellcaster. It was we were like combat had not even started, right? And this guy casts a spell on me,
Okay.
and I instantly die. I
What?
failed to save, and I instantly died.
That they had that just like
Yeah, no,
What?
3.5 was brutal, dude.
Oh my
Like,
god.
previous editions of D&D were insane.
I feel it's like I feel coddled by 5e now. Like, don't worry, buddy,
And it
you'll
was
be
fun, and I got
okay.
to make another wacky build after that.
That's so like what
R.I.P.
kind of a
thrower.
spellcaster kind of wields that spell? Do you remember? I know you like you said it was almost 10 years ago probably, but like
It was a monster called a Balor.
okay, so it was a specific type of monster. And like was it a thing like that? Is that like a crazy high DC or something? Or is it a low D? Is it like how it's just like no, if you roll anything below a 15, you're dead. And like, can it do it multiple times? That's insane.
Mhm. It had. Where was it?
It's not. I just
Oh no, you know what it was?
go ahead.
My DM liked to give player character classes to the monsters. So it was like
Oh,
this crazy creature. I don't know if it was the Balor. We fought a Balor at some point. This was like mine 10 years ago. I
right,
don't.
right. No, no, it's fine. If it's too hard to remember, you just we move past it.
Yeah, no, but we came across something that had a spell called Power Word Kill.
Power
And
word kill.
it said the kill word, and I failed my save, so I was killed.
Wow, wow. And then so then is there like if you had, I guess that's like killed, like you doubled your hit points in 5e and you're just outright dead. Were you revivable and then just no one had the ability to do so?
um, uh, yeah. So I could have theoretically been revived if they
Okay,
wanted to recover my body and not just cut and run from this monster, right? Which killed me outright, and I was a significant portion of the DPS that we had. So
gotcha,
they would have needed to A, fight the thing without me from the
gotcha.
very onset, and B, drag my body out, and C, like my character enough to bring it back.
Right, right. That's yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work
A
sometimes.
lot of work. That last check
Sometimes
mark was never gonna make it, by the way.
yeah. I always equate it sometimes to like if you've ever played the video game Left 4 Dead or anything like that. Like that's how it goes. Like you're playing with four people, you're four of your friends, and like you're like, listen, man, if I don't get on this escape thing, we're all gonna die. So sorry, and that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But so this was how like was it pretty far into the campaign? Were you like getting close to the end of it?
Um, we had played for maybe 2-3 months at that point.
Okay,
It was very sandboxy. It wasn't like an adventure or anything. We weren't on an adventure path.
just kind of
So
moving through the motions.
yeah, like the DM came with this setting sort of pre-built. It was like a sandbox style thing.
Mm-hmm.
Funny because it was in a desert. So yeah.
Right.
um, but
Ironic.
yeah, we didn't really have too much goals. We were just kind of bouncing from world-ending apocalypse one to another until trying to stop the world from ending as many times as possible.
Gotcha, gotcha. So that was your first kind of for the most part, other than your crazy uh DMing that you had to do for 5e. And now I know you kind of shifted more gears, you're more into the Pathfinder deal right now, right? Kind of
Yeah, so I liked the Pathfinder system, the first edition system, because I was used to 3.5, and what Pathfinder first edition said was, okay, imagine 3.5, but without all of the sprawling nonsense and overpowered spells and all the erratas, and like let's take 3.5 and boil it down into something manageable, right?
gotcha.
Let's take all the interesting character decisions you can do. Let's they they made it so that building your character was really modular and fun, and you can like create a concept and find out how to do that in the rule set, which I really
Mm-hmm.
liked. So Pathfinder was cool. Then Pathfinder Second Edition came out, and a lot of the changes were things that kind of felt like they should have been in D&D like ages ago.
Gotcha.
But they managed to keep that modular style of make a concept for a character and you can find out how to do it within the rules of the system.
Okay.
It's very free form. There's not a lot of like locking into something. You can like plan something intricate out and then execute and
go away from the different paths and stuff. That's cool. That's definitely different. What I had another question actually before we get I did want to ask, because like you said, when you started, you were hearing, like, you heard the history of like, oh, Satanists and stuff like that. Did you ever have any awkward situations where like for me, I tell you, I don't even think about it, but like I started really recently when like 10 years ago. Like, did you hide it from your parents at all, or was it kind of like not too much to worry about?
the only part of playing D&D that I ever hid from my parents was when we actually casted Raise Undead in real life. We had to really, get the shovels out, make sure we handled that on our own, keep it quiet. Didn't want anybody to know about that. But besides that, no, I was very open with my parents about it because, like, I needed to buy the books. I was a high school student.
Right, and you were a little, you're young, so it just.
My parents know I'm a massive nerd. It is what it is. It's fine.
Yeah, I think I had like one brief moment. My friends and I were like writing a comic book, and I think my dad, I didn't even think about it, but he said something weird. He's like, "You writing comic books? You doing anything else?" Like, see, and then it took me years to realize, I'm like, oh, he was asking if I was like gonna start sacrificing goats or anything. No, we just made a comic book. Yeah, it's hilarious. So that was, I mean, that was a few of the things. Like, I really like, I want to hear all about that. It's pretty much going to be my line of questioning for a lot of people that come on this show. But now I kind of want to toss the ball into your court, and I want to hear about like the times, like the ones that you just sit. Like, I know you kind of forgot about your first character. Which is the characters, the stories, the moments that you can't ever forget about, other than Milton.
All right. So there's one that I always refer to in my head as the "I'm gonna bull rush him" incident.
So, and on that note, I'm probably gonna, when I release the audio, it's gonna be, I'm gonna bull rush him.
So a different character that I had made in 3.5 is a Warforged artificer, because I was like, all right, I'm gonna try and mess around with spells and stuff, because a lot of what artificers did in that was like making wands, making magic items, doing a bunch of stuff, right?
Quick question: is it similar to the artificer in like 5e now?
I don't know too much about how the artificer works in 5th edition right now. I know you have like a little mechanical companion that
there's a few different ones. There's like an alchemist, there's a battlesmith, but in later levels you can do that. You can like craft your own wands to do more damage and stuff like that. So I guess maybe a little similar.
Yeah. Yeah, the philosophy of the class has stayed the same, where it's like you're this you're like a mechanist. You're not a proper wizard. You build things, and they are magical things.
Yeah, I call it a steampunk wizard.
Yeah.
Steampunk wizard. Yeah.
So I was a Warforged, which is a robot guy.
Right.
And as part of building this artificer, I decided that I was going to like keep wands in my arm, and they were going to like pop out, and I would like cast Scorching Ray from that wand, then a different wand would pop out of my other hand, and I would like cast something else with that.
Like a revolver, but with wands.
Yeah. So I ended up in town alone, and there had been like disappearances going on. And I got stopped and like questioned by the police, so I casted glibness on myself, which makes all your deception checks have like plus 30 or something ridiculous on it.
Okay.
And I was just like lying to people left and right,
trying to get out of this with your head.
Yeah, and I was just like digging a hole, burying myself in way deeper than I ever had to be, because of all of these convoluted lies that everybody was believing. And I ended up getting shepherded into this magic shop that was in the town, and there was this kindly looking old man, very frail guy, just behind the counter, and he kept saying these weird, sinister things to me. But he was like all outwardly just this kindly little old man, and I was like, dude, you're kind of freaking me out. I'm getting really
So
nasty
he was
vibes
kind,
from
but
you.
he would like slip in something that was like somewhat threatening.
Well, yeah, because there were these like disappearances happening. He was saying things like, I don't know. He was just being creepy. So I ended up casting Detect Magic to see what was going on around here, and there was just necromancy everywhere, just tons of necromancy.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh God, you're a bad man. You're a bad old man. I need to get out of here." I am not prepared for this situation. I got the cops outside. I got this necromancer in here, and it happened so that the necromancer was between me and the door, and I was like, "Buddy, you gotta move. I gotta get out of here. I'm running. I'm getting out of here right now." And this guy was like, "Oh, no, you should stay. You shouldn't go anywhere. I think don't you want to see some of my wares?" And so I declare to the table that I'm going to Bullrushim, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is a shoulder first, forward charge.
I guess you're a robot, so it kind of works.
And I just shoulder check this tiny, frail old man into this door, bash through it, shatter this poor old guy, who turns out, yes, he was a necromancer, but he was like actually not responsible for any of the disappearances, and was kind of, yeah, he was actually mostly just a kindly old man who was looking to sell me some of his wares.
And he just couldn't do anything.
It's just creepy. It was really creepy. And
were you able to lie your way out of it?
Yes, but I remember what happened. So what happened to this character eventually? I did lie my way out of it. All my friends, they refused to let me live that down, that I bull rushed the poor kindly old man who just wanted to help me out. And what eventually happened to this character was artificers in 3.5 can get something called an item familiar, which you can like store some of your class abilities and powers into this item familiar, and you gain like different benefits because of that, right? So me being a Warforged construct, I was like, I'm going to make my Warforged attached to armor my item familiar. And this was all well and good. It seemed like a great plan until I got permanently polymorphed into a different type of creature.
Oh.
Which destroyed forever my item familiar, which had so many of my class features tied to it. And that I simply could not.
So how did the polymorph destroy your item familiar again?
It was a part of me. It was like a part of.
So
I was a construct, and my item familiar was part of my metal construct body.
But it wouldn't just change everything because it was technically part of you.
Well, no, because it wasn't an item anymore.
Gotcha.
It wasn't an item anymore.
Gotcha. So it just lost all of its properties and stuff. So, were you able to eventually, like, is that something you rebuild back up? Like, did you have to start from the bottom essentially? Like someone. Like
I would have had to start from the bottom. At that point, I was just like, oh no, this really high level druid just turned me into a non-construct. Welp. I guess I'm just going to leave this character here and try and work off his debt to this druid, and eventually maybe they'll turn me back into a Warforged.
What did the druid?
No, this was a brutal campaign. It was a very brutal campaign.
What did the druid turn you into? Do you remember? You just said another creature.
I think it was a halfling. I think it was a halfling.
That must have been surreal for your character. Made of metal his entire life, and I was like, oh, I'm so squishy now. What's this breathing thing about? That's awful. That's so funny. Amazing. And that was a 3.5 one, you said?
Yeah, that was a 3.5.
3.5 days. Nice, nice. Have you ever tried just a random question, have you ever tried any like other than Pathfinder and D&D, have you tried any other like systems like these weird ones, like there's like Call of Cthulhu and these other strange I don't want to call them strange, they're just different.
Not really.
Not really.
A buddy of mine sort of used sort of like grabbed one of the D8 systems, which like D&D is a D20 system. A lot of the rules are based on D20 rules. Mm-hmm. A friend of mine grabbed a D8 system that he was familiar with and decided to try to make a Ghostbusters themed campaign.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And sort of like made a very rules light D8 based heavy role play sort of system.
Okay.
And we played a few sessions of that, and that was really fun.
Nice, nice. That's always a good time.
Yeah.
Nice. Any other kind of I can pick and pry, but any other crazy stories that come to your mind other than so we got I'm gonna bull rush him, where you crippled an old man.
Yeah. So when I was first DMing that very
DM
first time,
good too.
We were all like, brand new to the game. Okay. None of us had ever touched D&D before with a 11-foot pole, right?
Right.
And so one of my players decides that they're going to build a fighter. I'm like, okay, cool. You're going to be like a frontline guy. You're going to run up. You're going to hit stuff. You're going to be beefy. You're going to wear heavy armor. It's going to be cool. Mm-hmm. And he hands me his character sheet, and he's got like an 18 in intelligence, and all of his physical stats are like 12s and 10s. And he's like, yeah, okay. I want it to be a smart fighter. It's like,
wait, he's a fighter, like a fighter class. But
yeah,
he's just really smart and very frail.
Yeah, he wanted to be a smart fighter.
Okay.
Which was, I don't know, man. He had to be there. It was.
He said
like everyone else was like building, a cleric. I'm gonna max out my wisdom. I'm gonna plan all my spells. I'm gonna like think tactically. I'm gonna be a rogue. I'm gonna be like trying to get behind everybody and sneak attack. And my last friend was like, yeah, I'm a dwarf. My weapon is a massive keg filled with ale. That I'm going to smack people with. I'm just going to carry the keg around, drink out of it, and then I'm going to hit people with the battle keg. And I'm going to be a smart fighter. And one of the first adventures we had was they ended up in this farming village. And I was trying to get them to like engage in an adventure hook that I had set up. And I, being a brand new DM, had no idea how to get players to engage with an adventure hook. So I created a bunch of random chance checkpoints for people to potentially find the information that I needed them to find. And they didn't. So instead, they found a bunch of nonsense information like the farmer needs help with a weasel infestation out in his field. And so they decided that rather than looking for more information to go and find the missing artifact that the neighboring princess needs, they're going to go and help the farmer with the weasel problem. They became exterminators.
Okay.
They decided they were going to be weasel exterminators. So they went out to the farmer's place, and they find this big hole where all the weasels are coming out of, and the farmer's like, yeah, there's weasels coming out of there. Go get them. Just like entirely not what I had planned. It just entirely off the cuff. It was like Farmer Johan with the weasels, and our smart fighter was like, "Don't worry, sir. We are going to handle the weasels." And so they did. They went and they handled weasels, and that took 2 sessions. Oh, it was a horror story, man. It was a horror story.
Oh my god, now you said they were just trying to find information. So this smart fighter didn't roll high enough to find the information they needed.
Well, no, gather information's a charisma-based check.
Oh, it was charisma based. I was thinking like I guess more information. Oh, they were talking. They were talking to the. All right, so they're
Yep.
charismatic. Was that the dump that everyone went with as far as
Yeah,
parties?
yeah, it was. There were only 3 players in that one.
Yeah.
So we had a rogue,
Oh,
we had
okay.
a cleric, and we had a fighter.
Smart guy slinging kegs. Should have been in a
The
frat.
cleric, the cleric in that campaign, ever the creative, decided that he had a lot of trouble coming up with a name for the character, so eventually just settled on having a cleric named Father, and everyone just called him. Oh,
I
thank you,
mean,
Father.
that's as I guess if you're gonna go with a short name like that, that's the way to do it.
Mhm.
That's funny how like so I definitely don't mind like having not the most powerful of a class for like a character purpose. Like if the character's not really good at wisdom, but like you make him a cleric, yeah, you just put the highest stat in there. But like to abandon all hopes and just be like I'm just gonna be the smartest guy with not like is just really painful, and it must I don't know, I feel like it would
I
frustrate you
mean,
on the
hey,
inside like you just
we
want
were all brand new, you know. It's
no, it is funny. Have you ever made
not
like oh go ahead were
you
you
know
oh
not everyone
well
in high school is going to read the player's handbook cover to cover and like
yeah, that's true.
go on the
You were
forums,
that
and
guy, so you knew
I
what
was
was
that
gonna
guy.
happen. Yeah. Did you ever make like as far as characters you've created? Was there like one character that was like this character's awful? Like why did I make this character? And then you just had to like kind of deal with it for a while.
Um, well, hmm. No,
Like I have
I
played
think
with
I've
you a
been
bit.
pretty happy.
You're an efficient player for sure. You're like I'm gonna make this, stick with my game plan, and execute it flawlessly. Um, which actually made me think about like the way you did handle the necromancer is like pretty much a really like it's not a terrible like it's not like a super out of the box idea, but like when you're dealing with a caster like that, like yeah, just tackle the caster is like one of the things that that I've played with you is like one of your most brilliant moves all the time. Like, I'm just gonna tackle him. Like, yeah, that's exactly what you do. Like such a bold but efficient move. Like they're not strong. If you're a strong character like that, like yeah, just tackle them. Just
Let's put them in
it's
the dirt.
amazing. Uh, that's really good. Has so you had have you ever well I'm sure you have is there like what was like the worst as a DM like the worst death you've ever bestowed on someone? Was it like was there ever like an accidental or just combat based? You ever TPK a party?
No, I actually never have. Normally,
Okay.
I when I balance an encounter poorly, it's normally in the other direction. Normally, it's like a clean sweep by the party, and yeah, I don't like. I'm kind of scared of taking away people's fun. So
Right.
if people like spend a long time on like making a backstory and
Yeah.
uh, integrating their characters into the world, then I'd really like hate to kind of pull the rug out from under them for that.
Right.
So normally I err on the side of
The clean
giving the
sweeps,
characters a
yeah.
power trip rather than
It's tough for sure cuz like I've been dabbling in some DMing and stuff and like I don't know, you want the fight to be tough, but you don't want to like kill it. And then like when they sweep through and just crush your like everything you hoped in like one swoop, it hurts too. It hurts not as much as like losing a character, but like you're like, damn. Like I got not like I didn't even touch you guys. You just came in and just
that
wrecked
happened one
house.
time in the Pathfinder 2 campaign I was running. I had this uh, I had this setting that was a bunch of giants had a civilization in the mountains that was overthrown a few centuries ago, and so there are these like burial sites for giants, and one of the giants ended up getting like corrupted by an evil god, and so we had this big undead champion guy who was originally a paladin for like a stone god, but was defending a temple against the onslaught from this foreign upstart that was trying to take over the
Okay, wait. It's a lot. There's a lot here. So you have a
yeah, sorry.
So there's a no, it's fine. So the giant has been corrupted or taken over by a god.
Okay, so let's go top down on this.
Okay.
The way that I set up the Pantheon in this world is I sort of popcorn the players. I was like, okay, so at character creation, I want you guys to tell me what deity your guy worships, and we're going to build it together. It was like a homebrew setting. I wanted to fill up the Pantheon with everybody at the table, right? So one of the people was one of the guys that ended up on the Pantheon is used to be one of the giants from centuries past, who is like sort of a mountain god of rocks, god of time, god of like things like that, right? There is a foreign empire coming to the shores who sort of like this fire of industry type guy, this like trying to invade the Pantheon that was located on this one continent that we were working on. And he started by trying to take the power away from some of the older gods that people aren't worshiping too much anymore, like the giant.
Okay.
So there was a cultist that got set up in this old temple that was abandoned outside of a town.
Okay.
And was starting to corrupt the seat of power of this god, right?
Okay.
So outside that temple, there was an old paladin of the god, who himself was also a giant, who sort of woke up from his eternal slumber and wanted some adventurers to come in and stop the cultist from perverting the power of his god.
Gotcha.
Now, before the paladin guy let these adventurers into the temple, he wanted to test their mettle, because he didn't want to open these doors and let the floodgates out for whatever this cultist was doing.
Right.
Unless he knew that these adventurers were people who could handle it.
Okay.
So I set up this big, intense fight with this paladin of this mountain time god, with all these like special powers that he was going to do, like, oh, after this many rounds he would activate this and it would combo with this other ability, and
so
it would
this
be this
was
big...
what the giant came up with to like test them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the party just fucking sweeps him, just absolutely bodies the guy in like 2 rounds before any of the special abilities could go off.
So I guess the giant was like, okay, I guess you're good. And then you just open up the floodgates.
Like, oh god, yeah. No, go on in, guys. Take care of it. Thank you for coming, by the way.
Yeah,
thank you so much for coming.
How'd they do with the cultists and stuff?
They had a little bit of a rougher time down there because there was a lot of undead roaming around, and they were kind of getting swarmed. Like the single target stuff, it was pretty easy for them, but once they started getting swarmed by a bunch of guys, it started to get a little rougher for them. But they did manage to make it through. There was one fight from down in the temple where these 2 other lesser giants were entombed down there. And they got woken up by the perverse power of this cultist who was bringing this fire god down here and trying to warp it all. And so there were these big giant skeletons, right? And they had these burning red eyes that told the party that they were corrupted now. And more than that, on their forehead there was this burning red symbol that represented this foreign deity, and around their necks they each had holy symbols from the mountain god, the giant. And so they get into this room, and these guys these guys like lurch out of their massive, huge coffins, and they just stare at the party and they screech, and the party starts fighting them. And one of the abilities that I set up for these guys to have was to like do a cone of fire out from them.
Okay.
And so at some point during the fight, they grabbed that holy symbol, and they clutched it in their hand. It started melting, and the fire symbol on their head blazed bright red.
Mm-hmm.
And then from their mouth spewed this cone of bane fire. And
Right.
it was a proud moment for me as a DM, because
Did you drop any of them with that, or it pretty much they managed to shake
no,
it off?
it did some damage though. It did some damage.
Yeah, scary.
I was happy with how I was
That's like,
with
yeah,
the flavor of.
I think that's when the fun level is good too, because it's like when it's like it's such a dance, like I said before, but like you don't want to be, well, not every fight should be like crazy hard, but like, you know, there's some quick swoops and whatnot, but then like that, like a real like fight, like you want them to kind of think like, oh wait, we might die here. Like you don't want them to, and like they shouldn't, but like you want
They were
them
smart
to
about
think
it.
you're going to.
They were pretty smart about this one. When they saw like the big AoE thing, they actually kited out the big monsters into a narrower tunnel and sort of fought them one at a time.
Nice, awesome.
It's really hard challenging smart players.
yeah. There's definitely there's players, and it's not against anyone. You know, some people just want to just be that guy with the sword and just run in and go for it. But like when someone's like super smart, it's tough. Yeah, but then you gotta be careful, because if you create something too smart, that's how you topple.
Yeah, it's like an arms race.
Yeah, for sure. Nice. Well, it's been about 45-ish minutes. I think. Are there any other like little short stories you might want to tell, or are those pretty much your go-tos?
I mean, hey, do you have any more questions for me?
I think it's I enjoyed this conversation, Peter. You're a wonderful person to talk to, and you have a lot of knowledge. This was good. I picked you for a reason to be my first guest, for your sheer thoroughness, and you also helped me a little bit setting up with this. So this has been a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Did you have a good time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks,
good
Tom.
time tonight. Excellent. So I'm going to leave that as a close for my conversation today with Peter Zepf. Anyone listening live, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it too. I will be doing just the audio version where all podcasts can be found. So if you missed it, or you caught the tail end of it, you want to hear the rest of it, I should be posting that probably later next week. And then if you want to be on the show, I'm going to have a few parameters. I'd like you to be an enthusiast, okay? If you play a little bit on the weekends, you know, I want someone who's got some meat and potato stories for me. And then just follow the podcast on Twitch, or on when it's posted on Spotify or anything like that. And then you just shoot me an email at youhadtobethere@gmail.com. In the email, it's D&D with the letters DND, not with the symbol. So you had to be there, dndpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll try and set up an interview. I have a few other people lined up, but I definitely want to hear as many stories as possible, and I'm sure the possibilities are endless. So thanks again for listening. My name's Tom DeSillis, and this has been Peter Zepf. Thanks, everybody.